Most people never question this. They spend their whole lives chasing a number, the number in their bank account, as if the bigger that number gets, the more they've won at life. But history, both economic history and the stories of real people, tells us something very different. There were people who had more money than entire countries. They ended up powerless, ruined, forgotten, and yet there were others who never accumulated great fortunes. But when markets collapsed and currencies melted away, they were still standing, because they hadn't built wealth, they had built value. The moment you understand the difference between wealth and value, you'll see why most people are chasing the wrong prize. The glittering and crumbling gold of Versailles. In the early 1700s, France was home to one of the wealthiest courts in the world. King Louis XIV had transformed Versailles into Europe's center of extravagance. Gold-leafed corridors, marble columns, endless gardens. The nobility competed with one another in spending, importing silk from China, sugar from the colonies, wine from Bordeaux. On the surface, France looked unimaginably rich, but that wealth was nothing more than a hollow shell. The economy depended on war plunder, colonial exploitation, and debt piled upon debt. Taxes fell on the backs of peasants while the nobility paid almost nothing. It was at this point that a Scottish financier stepped onto the stage, John Law. Appointed as France's Comptroller General of Finances, Law tried to stop the collapse through paper money and the Mississippi Company. At first, it worked like magic. Fortunes multiplied on paper. Nobles and merchants grew rich faster than they had ever imagined. But this wealth was neither real nor lasting. The Mississippi Company's profits were inflated, and the lands in Louisiana were portrayed as far more valuable than they actually were. When confidence collapsed in 1720, that paper wealth vanished almost overnight. Those who had chased fast money were ruined. What remained? Those with tangible assets, landowners, craftsmen with productive skills. They weathered the storm without much trouble. This was one of the earliest major lessons in modern Europe about the difference between apparent wealth and real value. The same lesson, different centuries. Let's move to 1920s America. The stock market was like a one-way elevator. Up. Cars, radios, skyscrapers, symbols of progress were everywhere. Bankers and speculators were taking on unimaginable levels of risk, creating fortunes out of thin air. When the crash of 1929 came, that wealth evaporated. Who survived? Those with assets that still held utility. Farmers who could grow food. Factories that met basic needs. Businesses that solved real problems. The lesson unlearned in France went unlearned in America too. Money is not value itself, it is a claim on value. If the underlying value disappears, the money becomes meaningless. Rich on paper, vulnerable in reality. The vast majority of what we call wealth today is fragile. Stocks are priced not on guaranteed output, but on expectations about the future. Real estate values depend on interest rates and market sentiment. Currencies are only as strong as the trust placed in the institutions that issue them. History has shown us time and again how quickly that trust can dissolve. In Weimar Germany in the 1920s, a worker could receive their wages at noon, and by the time they stopped to buy bread on the way home, the price had doubled. In Zimbabwe in the 2000s, in Venezuela in the 2010s, millions of people watched their savings become worthless before their very eyes. Every time, the same thing happened. Those who measured their wealth in the local currency sank. Those who held hard assets or transferable skills managed to salvage something. What about Japan? Let's look at Japan in the late 1980s. It was said that the land beneath the Tokyo Imperial Palace was worth more than all the real estate in California combined. Japanese companies were buying the Rockefeller Center in New York and golf courses in Hawaii. On paper, Japan was unstoppable. In 1991, the bubble burst. Trillions of dollars in wealth evaporated. Companies went bankrupt. Stock prices collapsed. Real estate values continued falling for more than a decade. But Japan did not disappear, because the country had something beyond wealth: the highly educated workforce, an industrial base capable of producing world-class goods, and a culture built on quality and precision. That was value. It couldn't prevent the pain, but it provided the foundation for recovery. What is value, really? Value is this: the capacity to produce, the strength to endure, usefulness under any economic condition, a skill you can trade, a network you can rely on, an asset that produces essential goods or services, knowledge that allows you to solve urgent problems. All of these are value. Value stands firm when markets panic. Value stands firm when currencies collapse. Because people need it, and that need is the most resilient currency in the world. What the system doesn't tell you: the modern financial system constantly blurs the line between wealth and value. That blurring is profitable, but profitable for whom? A citizen who measures their success by the number on a bank statement serves the interests of those in power. A customer who chases the latest financial products instead of investing in real, tangible skills or durable assets serves the interests of corporations. The more you confuse wealth with value, the easier it becomes to trap you in cycles of dependency. In ancient Rome, the wealthiest senators owned vast estates, but their real power came from controlling the essential resources the city depended on: grain, olive oil, wine. As the denarius lost its value over the centuries, those who held only coins lost their purchasing power. Those who held agricultural production, mining rights, or shipping fleets kept their influence. Real financial freedom. The reason most people never achieve true financial freedom is this: they chase wealth without building value. They accumulate, but without asking, what is this wealth actually made of? What does it rest on? If your wealth is tied entirely to a stock index, a corporate salary, or a currency that can be devalued, you may not be as rich as you think. Real financial freedom means this: not having your livelihood depend on a system you cannot control remaining stable indefinitely. In today's world, that means owning assets that will be needed under any economic condition. Land, tools, technology, mastering a skill that will always be in demand. Software, construction, food production, problem solving under pressure, building relationships that can provide opportunity or protection when formal systems fail. All of these are forms of value that will outlast paper wealth by far. Conclusion: a castle built on sand. History has proven this time and again. The people who appeared most wealthy were often the most vulnerable when the tide turned. The French aristocrats of the 18th century, the American robber barons of the early 20th century whose empires collapsed when regulations changed, the tech millionaires of the 2000s whose stock options became worthless when the bubble burst. All of them were rich until suddenly they weren't. Because wealth without value is no different from a castle built on sand. The real point is this: the difference between wealth and value is not just an interesting historical observation. It is the thin line between those who weather economic storms and those who are swept away by them. The same forces that sank France's nobility, devastated Wall Street in 1929, and deflated Japan's bubble economy are still at work. They've just put on different clothes. Once you grasp this difference, you can step away from the illusion and start building something truly lasting. Something no market crash, no currency devaluation, no political upheaval can take from you. Wealth is not what you've been told it is, but value never lies. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's discuss your thoughts in the comments. What do you think the next video should be about?